All right, so hello and welcome everybody to the Richmond Art Gallery's Artist Salon series. I am Kathy Tycholis. I'm the gallery's Education and Public Programs Coordinator and the host of the Artist Salon series. First, I'd like to acknowledge the gallery's physical location on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Hunkaminam speaking peoples. And while not physically being there tonight, I'm really happy that we get to continue this program and host it online, and really appreciate all of you joining us today and spending some time with us. For those of you who are new to the Artist Salon series, it is a free monthly program for visual artists. It is designed as professional development and community building for visual artists in the Lower Mainland. And normally socializing, networking is a big part of the program. So as we move to an online format this year, I do welcome our community of artists, whether this is your first time or you've been a part of the program in the past over the years. Please send your suggestions as to what type of guest artists and presenters and topics you'd like us to cover in this series as we move on for the rest of the year, probably to be online. At the end of this session, there will be a survey emailed out to you, and that's where you can let me know what sort of things you're interested in coming up for the next year. And also just what would be really helpful to you as you move forward in your own art practice. The Salon is not only a live event tonight, it is going to be recorded, and we will post this later on onto the gallery's website. We also exist as a Facebook group. So if you wanted to join the Richmond Artist Salon Facebook group, we regularly post artist calls, opportunities, anything that's of importance for Prody for visual artists coming up. So feel free to join that as well. So the format for tonight, we have set times throughout the entire presentations for Q&A. So you will see at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A box. That's where you can enter your questions. I will go through them at certain points throughout the presentation, and we can answer your questions then, so you don't have to wait till the very end of the presentation to enter your questions. There is also a chat box as well on the bottom, and that will be mainly used for I will post in any links that might get mentioned or any sort of resources that get mentioned, and I can just post them there for you to copy down. If you post your questions there, it's a little bit harder for me to monitor because they go by really quickly. So I recommend you use the Q&A portion if you're going to ask some questions of us tonight. And so that is our basic format for tonight. So I will introduce our presenter, Jas Lally. So Jas, I first met as a Richmond Art Gallery board member. She helps run and organize all our fundraising events, among other things. And it was then that I discovered she is super involved in so many different arts organizations throughout Vancouver. So she's extremely knowledgeable in many arts organizations, and just I'd say the arts community in general in the Lower Mainland. So she is currently the showroom assistant at the Art Rental and Sales for the Vancouver Art Gallery. And she volunteers not just with us at the Richmond Art Gallery, she's also serving as president of the board of directors for the Contemporary Art Society of Vancouver. And her past positions include assistant curator at the Contemporary Art Gallery of Vancouver. And she has been a juror for many different organizations and events. One of them, the Burrard Arts Foundation, which she will be talking to about tonight. So without further ado, I will leave it to Jas, and I'll disappear for a while and come back for the questions.
Thanks so much, Kathy, for that lovely introduction. And thanks for letting me be part of the Richmond Art Gallery's Artist Salon this evening. And thank you to everyone who's joining us tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out with us. So as Kathy mentioned, I'll be speaking about applying to submission-based programs, and in particular juried programs, because these are the ones that I have been involved in the past, and am currently working in a department that has a submission-based program. The talk tonight is divided into three sections. The first part, we're just going to go over the basics of what to include in your submission. The second part is some things to consider when you're applying to a submission-based program. And Lastly, we'll be discussing some examples. So I'll go through some programs that you can apply to. Okay, so the first section, what to include in your submissions package. CV, artist statement, biography, and images. So for your CV, try to keep it to 1 page. You know, there's a lot of papers that can come into submission, so having something concise is brilliant. And include the most recent exhibition projects that you've been working on. Also, if you're including any hyperlinks to articles that mention or review your exhibition or art practice, make sure that the link, is active and that it's accessible. Try it out. Very good. That's very important. And also the readability of your CV. Now, you know, use bold headings, use subject categories, so your resume or your CV is nicely laid out. And when a juror, for example, is going through 20 submissions, it's easy to see where you've exhibited, where you've been to school, where the professional experience has come from. And also now, especially that we're all going very digital, include your website, any social feeds that you might have, Instagram or Facebook. Jurors are encouraged to look at these social websites as well to see how active the artist is on social. Okay, and your artist statement, keep it short, about 200 words should be adequate enough. The artist statement should say an overall practice about your practice or specifically about a series that you're submitting. So there's some choices there as to how you want to lay your artist statement out. Biography or about the artist section that generally comes up as well. Once again, keep it concise. Highlight a few things about yourself, such as experiences, but also remember that you don't have to include this part if the submission package doesn't ask for it or require it. Images. Now, this is very important. If you can, if you can have your artwork professionally documented, that is a very beneficial. I know it's an investment, but it's super great because a juror may be coming across your artwork for the first time, and they may not have seen your work in person, and so this is how they're going to be seeing it digitally. So it's important that the image is clean and crisp and represents what the art looks like. Also, if anyone's going to be zooming in on an image, it's nice to have those details come up rather than something getting pixelated. Other than that, having a high-res, good quality image is important. You can use your camera, or borrow a camera. This is quite accessible, and most cameras these days are really well built for such things as taking really great pictures. But if you can't and you want to have professional documentation of your artwork, there's some really great photographers in the city that are familiar with this process. You can also go onto social or Instagram to look at an artist, for example, with if they've posted an image or detail of their work and it's been professionally documented, they'll have the link to the photographer that they've used. Also, something that can get overlinked or over seen and maybe overlooked is to include the details of the image in the thumbnail. The dimensions, is the work framed or unframed? Sometimes this isn't as obvious. And that's just also nice to keep everything organized when you're submitting your images. So before you apply, there's some things to consider and research. Okay, research, very important. When you're looking to apply to a program, read about the institution or the program, go online, do some digging, go in person if you can to see what the program is all about. This is really helpful because from here you can start defining and seeing if the program is well suited for your practice. So you can, from here you can glean if the submission is looking for a mid-career, emerging, or established artist. It's also important to see if the program is a good fit for your practice as well. For example, if the program already has 2 text-based artists, the program may not be looking for another text-based artist because it's already saturated. However, if you feel like your work is something quite different and would fit very well within that text-based example, then by all means, go for it. So some things to consider when you're doing your research and when you're putting your package together and before you submit your package. Make sure that your documentation, so your artist CV, list of images, what have you, they have your name on them in the header or the footer. Sometimes the submissions get printed off for the jurors, and when the jurors going through the package, things can get shuffled. So it's nice if a paper does go astray that you can easily put it back with the other documentation for that artist. Also, it's a nice attention to detail as well. And it's nice if when you're submitting your package and you're writing a letter or an email, make sure you list the institution or the program's name correctly. I've come across a few packages that had the wrong name on them, or the program was listed incorrect. It was not listed correctly. Now, your artwork. For a submission, if it doesn't ask for new work, you don't have to create new work for the submission. It is ideal if you pick a series of work, or you pick the work that best reflects your practice and your skills, and then this is also reflected in your artist statement. Also, the submission can take a couple of months to come through. So while in the meantime, you could be working on a new body of work, and when you get selected, you can then present this new body of work to be submitted, or when you're in the program, you could use this new body of work to refresh your inventory with the program. Some submission-based programs involve pricing. Once again, do your research for how you're going to price your work. You could look at a formula. There are lots of guides online. Also, you can work with art consultants who could help you with this as well. But most importantly, if this is your first time pricing, price your work accordingly, as it's easier to slowly increase your prices over time than it is to have to decrease your prices. It just messes up the kind of the value of the art, of your artwork, if they're kind of everywhere. And this is also important if you are represented by a commercial gallery or gallery space or another program, that your pricing be the same across the board. It's important to have this consistency for the value of your artwork and for your overall practice as well. Now, if you're submitting work or you're making work that you think is fragile because it could be easily damaged, you have to remember that clients will be handling the work and they're non-art handlers. You don't want the work to get damaged. You might have to consider framing and putting the work under glass. So this is also another consideration to take in when you're doing your research for this submission, for a submission-based program, to see if you're going to be a good fit. There's also some really handy, there's a really handy website, Preview Magazine, and when you go, the preview magazine comes in a catalog form that can be found at most cultural institutions, but it also has an online presence, and it has a tab for fine art services. If you click there, you can come across framers, people who can create for you, and these are all really great companies and institutions that are listed in the magazine. So really handy resource to have. And finally, a checklist for your submission. Often programs will include a checklist, so you make sure your artist CV, your images, an application form, for example, is all there. If there isn't a checklist, you can make one up with some of the things that we talked about a few minutes ago, like your CV and list of images. This is really good to help you keep organized as well. You'll give yourself time to go through the process of applying to a submission-based program. And it's really nice because it'll keep you on track. It'll double check that you have included everything. The last thing you want to do is include or submit an incomplete submission. So we've just gone over a couple of things and highlights of what to include in your submission. And so if there's any questions at the time or any clarification that's needed, this would be a good time. Kathy?
Yep, there are some questions. So the first question is, if your work is photo-based, do you want to see it framed or just the image?
So that's a really good question. It's framed.
Great. Second question, does the size of the submitted pieces matter?
Yes, and I was going to get to this later, but we can talk about it again here. So in the part when you're doing your research for the program, have a look, because there is sometimes a limitation to what the program can carry. You know, large sculptural works may not be able, you might not be able to display them in the showroom. So this will all come through the research that you do, or you can contact the submissions-based program to see what is the limitation of the artwork. Mind you, most when you're submitting it, it's all done digitally. So this is why I said, you know, stating the dimensions and if the artwork is framed or not, if it comes on the base. This is all very important when you list your artwork in your package.
Great. Another question. When a submission asks for pieces intended to be shown and you don't have the whole body of work done yet, can you send example images?
Yes, of course. That's nice, because then it shows that you're keeping your inventory fresh and you're working through some of the ideas. But ideally, it is better to show work that you've already completed.
Okay, three more questions coming up. I heard that galleries are less willing to represent artists who have sold a large number of works online.
Interesting question. I haven't heard that before, but I wouldn't think so. I guess it would be based on well, a submission, for example, would be based on the caliber of your art, and if the program needs that style of artwork. And I don't think they would put a limitation if your artwork has been sold online, because that's great that it's sold online, and that means it could be sold in the program as well. Great. So well done.
Another question, if works are older, as in 7 to 10 years older, but still relevant to the submission, is it acceptable to submit?
Yeah, if you believe that if this is like the best body of work that you have, totally go for it. And if it's current, even better.
Okay, and should you include a range that reflects the breadth of your practice, or is one series that you think will fit?
I think the latter for sure. That will make a stronger application. Mind you, as I also mentioned, that when jurors go through the packages, they're also encouraged to look online on social and the artist website to see other works. And sometimes you can get selected for another body of work that's on your website that you have to submit with. So that's why I said keep active on social and keep your websites up to date with your bodies of work.
Okay, one last question. For photo-based works, are limited editions more desirable?
Yeah, they are, because often enough you are wanting to, the programs and exhibitions are trying to sell a original artwork, so having a limit is really great. Art rentals and sales, limit is usually, or the edition number is under 10, we like to keep it now. Yeah, lower edition numbers, the better. And also make sure you include that information when in your list of images or in your thumbnail as well.
Oh, another question. They just keep popping up. If a gallery doesn't have a specific call for submissions, is it a faux pas to cold call or email a curator or institution?
Oh, if an institution says that they do not take unsolicited emails, then I would not do that, because they probably have their own way of reaching out to artists. But I mean, like asking the institution, the curatorial department, if you can add them to your mailing list, for example, so that they get a newsletter by you to see what you're working on or what you have coming up. I don't think that hurts. So it's all, so everyone's aware. And therefore you're reaching out into the community and your work is being seen by multiple eyeballs at the same time.
And I'll just add to that as well, because I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
I think it just, that goes back into your research of checking out the gallery and what type of gallery it is, whether you think your work would fit, and then seeing whether, you know, what their submission process is like. So yeah, it's a big part of the research before you even start sending out applications. And we have another question. If I want to propose an art installation, what other kind of information is helpful to include, especially if it hasn't been created yet?
Also a great question, because I was going to allude to this in one of the other one of the examples. So well done. Make sure it's really great to include as much detail and be as descriptive as you can about the installation. Include imagery, even if it's a mock-up or SketchUp. Visual aids always help. And even if you can go to the next step and put it in like a SketchUp or mock-up design, that's even better. That will give the jurors a really clear image of what the final piece, the installation, will look like with all the other information that you've provided. So more of a description, the better.
And I'm going to add to this one too,
yeah.
Just because the Richmond Art Gallery shows a lot of installation work, so I've seen how they develop. I think in terms of installations, it's always kind of a risk for a curator if they, you know, if they don't have an image of what you're showing, or you have never done that type of work before. So it really is about building a relationship with that, either that gallery or that curator.
And the space, you know, right? That you're going to.
And the space, like, yeah. So it's really about developing relationship. And you know, I know in terms of like art curators, they've gone and done artist studio visits, you know, and again, just based on that conversation, they get a better sense of what that installation might look like, even though it's not physically there. And so, yeah.
You bring up a really important point as well, the conversation that initially takes place and then the multiple conversations that happen, because the curator probably knows or has more information in some of those smaller details that one is not aware of maybe a lighting issue, right? During the night or the day, like the columns project, for example. Yeah, so these fine details in it, and that's really important to keep that conversation going and when you're developing as well.
A more technical question.
Ooh, okay.
Instead of framing a photo, can it be face mounted behind acrylic or mounted and laminated on an aluminum panel?
Yeah, yes, definitely. If the original artwork, the photograph won't get damaged, if the artwork won't slip, for example, that's also an issue. If you think the corners, for example, are strong enough, then totally go for it. Yeah, so usually face mounted or under acrylic, the images look really slick as well, because sometimes a frame can contain too much.
And I think one last question, because there is a question about where to apply, but I think you will get to that later on. So I'll skip that one. But the other question is, if I have worked on different projects and the style of those works are quite different, can I submit sample from all those projects, or should I include only the current style?
Like we've been saying, it comes out in your research into what the submission program is looking for. But ideally, if you feel like, you know, there's a few pieces from the range of your bodies of work are like your strong pieces, and by all means include them rather than sticking to one series. This will come out through your research and what you feel like are your strongest pieces as well.
Okay. Did we want to have a break back to your presentation, or did you want one more question?
Is it a good question?
I'm just not sure if you're going to cover it. So
oh, okay. Well, we're going to move on to examples of where to apply. So I'll be talking more in depth about a couple of the programs.
Okay, well then maybe we should just get to this last question then.
Okay.
Regarding studio visits, would you recommend artists contact institutions to solicit a visit?
Once again, like we've mentioned, it comes out through the research if the institution does that. Most curators do reach out to artists to ask for studio visits, but I mean, if the institution is willing, or if it's like an artist-run center, or there is an open call, by all means, reach out.
I think that's it for now, and so we'll let you keep going, Jess.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy. Great questions, everyone. And after I've completed this portion, we'll have, at the end, we'll have more time to ask for more questions. And Kathy's moderating on the other side, so she's getting them all. Okay, so now we move on to the third part about where to apply. We'll be going into more detail about these examples. So it's the Art Rentals and Sales Program at the Vancouver Art Gallery, Burrard Arts Foundation Residency Program, and the Girl Art. And then also we'll look at some examples of city submissions as well. So we're going to start off with Art Rentals and Sales. This is where I work. So we'll probably spend most time talking about this program. A little bit about the program. The call for submission opens once a year, usually in April, and is open for 3 weeks. The call is open to BC-based artists, as the mandate of the program is to support local artists as professional artists. We really want to engage with our local creative community and support them. Applications are found online on the website, artrentalandsales.com. You can also actually submit your email under the submissions tab so that you can receive an automatic email once the call is open, or if there's any news about the call for submissions, such as earlier this month, we had a call say that we sent out an email for the call being delayed due to what's happening right now. And when the gallery reopens, we will send out a call, an email for when the call does open. So we will be taking submissions at some point this year. So what better time than to submit your email so you get that notification and to start working on your application for Art Rentals and Sales. The type of work that is accepted into the Art Rentals and Sales program is actually quite varied because our clients are so varied. We have anywhere from individuals to corporate clients to film and TV as well. And because we work with TV and film, all the artwork is copyright cleared. And because we work with such a varied clientele, the artwork is reflected in this as well. So we have everything from traditional landscapes to abstract photography. And we actually even have a small collection of sculptural work as well. And fingers crossed, with the new gallery, the showroom will double in size so that we can get larger sculptural works as well. So it's important that you come and visit the showroom once it's open, but also to go online and look at the catalog and see the type of work and artists who are part of the program. And what you need to include in your CV is listed on the website, but I will also list here. You need your CV, which is 1 page, an artist statement, which is 200 words, an index of 10 images, and then the 10 images that are sent via Dropbox or WeTransfer, along with the completed application form that you can find online. I just also want to flag that just double check your technology here if you're not familiar working with Dropbox or WeTransfer, for example. Do a test email with a friend or to yourself just to make sure that everything is there and it's going through correctly. Oh, and I have this image of the showroom walls here, since you can't visit it right now, but hopefully you will. Here we have a room with 12 of these pull-out walls with artwork on either side. This image shows just one side of the walls, which are all the works that aren't under glass. On the other side of the walls are works under glass. And you can already see in here the sizes are quite varied, and the range of work is quite varied as well. So the process of applying to the program, like I said, the call opens in April, and you have 3 weeks to apply. When the call closes, the submissions are long listed, and then they're shortlisted. And then from the short list, about 7 to 10 artists are selected to go into the program. Once you're in the program, you remain in the program. This is a business, so as long as your work is renting and selling, that's really good. If there are times too when work does slow down, we'll take a moment and refresh your inventory, and then usually picks up from there as well. So we make sure we want to support the artists. We want to make sure that the artwork is selling and renting. Now we get to the jury part of the process as well. Each year, about 3 or 4 members of the art profession, local art professionals, are asked to be jurors. They're anywhere from curators to directors to stagers to writers. So we also have a variety of jurors who come and look at the works as well, and they select. So the artist going into the program, not a staff member. It's important for us that the jury changes each year too, because we want to get a diverse range of artists in the program, and different minds, they're great, and great conversations come up as well. It's important to keep in mind for this submission that the jury does change each year. So if your submission is not selected that year, please do apply again for the next year. Because there'll be a different eyeballs looking at your work, for example. Also, there are a couple of artists in the program, a few artists, who haven't been selected on their first round. It's taken a couple of applications before their work has been selected, so keep applying. And then just to keep in mind, as if we go back to here, you'll see the size of the walls. There is a limitation to the artwork that we can show in the showroom. The largest piece that we can fit on the wall is about 96 inches in length and I think about 70 inches high. But that doesn't deter us from asking artists for large works, because we can put them on file, for example, and if a client comes through who's interested in a massive piece of artwork, we have imagery and details to show them, which is why I said, again, images, very important, that the quality is high quality and they're good images to use. So just to keep in mind, come and visit the showroom, look at the artwork that's in there, get a feel for the space, and remember, the program is looking to take in work that is different from what we already have. For example, we're not going to take another type of landscape artist that may look similar to what we already have, because we don't want the two artists to compete, and we want to support the artists in the community. I will also bring up that there is another art rental program. It's the North Van Art Rental Program, and so Kathy can link to this program, and you can also take a look at the North Van Art Rental Program as well. So the second example that we're going to look at is the Burrard Arts Foundation Artist Residency Program. About the program, the residency program offers a creative support and professional development to qualified Vancouver-based artists, helps emerging artists to facilitate work that otherwise may not have been realized. So for example, if you are an artist who primarily works in painting, but wants to give sculpture or textile-based work a go, or try it out and see how that fits into your overall practice, this is a great program to apply for. The residency is 10 weeks, and it's completed at Burrard Arts Foundation. We recently did a renovation, so there's two artist studios that they've made at the gallery. Once you've completed the residency, your work is shown in the main space of the gallery. And just to keep in mind that there usually are two artists working at the same time, the residency, and then there are some things that you need to include for this submission program. You need your CV, an artist statement, and images of your artwork. Also, the applications are accepted from May 1st to June 30th, and then the artist is chosen for the following year. So, oh, here, I have a great image of Holly Schmidt's show from last year. So these are paper mache plants and flowers that Holly did some research for. Holly actually works as more as a project-based artist and looks at food-based processes, food-based practice art as well. And actually Holly is part of the Art Rentals and Sales program as well, where she actually has work that's weaving done with construction paper, that she's got high-res images that are framed under glass. So as you can see, this is a great program where Holly was able to develop work that she normally wouldn't have developed. So the process for the Burrard Arts Foundation residency program, it's also done through a jury or committee, which is made up of BAF staff, the board, and select art professionals from the community. The committee selects 8 artists to go to the residency program for the following year. This year, it was done a little bit differently, but normally it is for the next year, and you're told well in advance of when your residency and exhibition time slots are. And to keep in mind, this program is for emerging artists, but if you're mid-career artist, you're more than welcome to apply. So another example from Burrard Arts Foundation is the garage. Now the garage is a really cool exhibition space that was a former loading bay, just outside or beside the gallery. The space is street facing, it's glass fronted, where guests can't actually enter. So it's only visible on the outside, and it is visible during the day and night. So already some unique challenges here. Emerging artists are encouraged to apply because this is a great space for experimentation. And most importantly, this is the most public access point into BAF's on-site programming. So it is visible 24/7 and is very accessible to the public. For this program, you need to include a CV, artist statement, and a conceptual design. So we had the question about proposals. So this is where a proposal is indeed needed, and also would make a stronger application as well. So, you know, be as descriptive about the project as you can be. Go look at the space during the day and later at the night to see if your work will fit and some of the challenges that you might face, and then how you overcome these challenges. Use imagery, whether that be, you know, mocking up an image of your artwork in the space, or even doing a proper mock-up in InDesign or SketchUp, which is, like I said, a great visual aid for jurors to see what the complete project would look like. For this submission, the applications are accepted during February and April. And got a couple of images from past exhibitions. We've got Chris Mills and Alex Ashton here. So you can already see how Chris has used the face of the sliding door, where Alex has decided to go into this space. So two different examples of two different artists uniquely using the space here. The process for this submission is the same as for the residency program. We're a committee made up of staff, the board, and select art professionals. They select 5 artists to go to do the garage residency. Just to keep in mind, this program is for emerging artists, so that will also come up in your research. And last, and very briefly, I'll just talk about city submissions. These are some great examples of submissions that you can apply for. The banners, which come down on the street fronts or over the bridges. Also, we can, I was the juror for the banners project for the city of Richmond, which is really exciting. Also, there's the columns project that the city of Richmond Richmond's cultural arts and projects, is it? That teams up with Richmond Art Gallery as well to present that. There's the utility wraps, or the utility boxes that City of Vancouver does. If you want a little bit more in-depth residency program, you have the field houses, the City of Vancouver, and also you have City of Richmond's Branscombe House Artist Residency Program that you can look into. So I encourage emerging and mid-career artists to go and look at city submissions as well. You know, these are great ways of getting your artwork into the public. It's great community engagement, great for all artists, and to create a really strong network as well. And before we move on to the final set of questions, just want to reiterate that, you know, do your research about the program that you're applying for. Make sure that your practice is a good fit for the program. Follow the programs on social, sign up for their newsletters so that you stay informed. Kathy's listed a few of the links that you can log on to and see and submit your emails. Also, you can reach out to artists who have been past participants and, you know, ask them what their experience was, and if they have any tips that they wanted to share with you. You can also email the organizations and ask your questions as well. And most importantly, keep applying. Don't give up. You know, the juries change every year, for example, or 2 years at least. It's a great way of practicing and refining your artist statement and your proposals. It's also great because the more you apply, you don't know, who's looking at your resume or your package or your artist's works. Then that juror, for example, may be on another committee and they might think of you and suggest you as well. So this is why it's important, to keep your community engagement and to keep applying and not to give up. So yes, I think that completes it for me, Kathy. We can open it up for questions.
All right. So we have some specific to the Vanguard Rental and Sales and BAF. So first, VAG art rental and sales. Do they want to see a consistent style in submitted pieces? Or would it be appropriate to submit some of each of different styles and directions? I think we kind of answered that before, but I think this is specifically for art rental and sales.
No, best to apply with one body of work, which is your strongest body of work.
And for framing, specifically decorative frames, are they a big factor in the saleability of a painting considering the high cost of framing?
So with art rentals, it's great that if you do get anything framed, to put the consideration of how much it costs of framing into the value of what you'll be selling the artwork for, so that you, in your commission, you would get some of that back. You keep that cost through the sale.
And then for BAF, what kind of proposal are they looking at? Are they interested in large installations? I think there's another question similar to that. Are they looking for more academically oriented or really large things? Just, you know, yeah, I was just looking at the website and you'll see the variety, but go ahead.
That's what I was going to say, Kathy. Go onto the website. Kathy's linked it, so you'll see some of the past residents who've come out of the program, right? You've got Polly's collage pieces, you've got Ryan Kwa's small, more intimate pieces, and then, you know, you've got Cindy Marazuki's kind of large installation piece in the corner, to Howie's large video installation screens that just came down as well. So large can work, but also keep in mind that the studio space that BAF has is quite small on a smaller scale. So you have to also consider, will you be able to make work in parts that then you can put together, install in the gallery space as well. And Kathy, what was the second? Well, if the BAF accepts a variety of artists, mostly emerging. This is a great program for emerging artists to experiment. But like I said, mid-career artists have also been considered as well.
So that leads to the next question of what defines an emerging artist? So
emerging artist is somebody who's just come out of school, or that they don't have necessarily gallery representation, and the number of shows that they've been part of is limited. So you don't have like 30 shows a year, for example. Yeah, you're not there yet. You probably have like the 2 or 5 shows, your grad show, and a couple of smaller group shows, and maybe a couple of solo shows. So you're still working at it.
So related to that question, what defines professional? I've had exhibitions since 2010, but not selling my works. Had one gallery represent my work starting last year. Would I still be considered emerging or mid-career?
I think you'd be in that cusp, since you do have gallery representation, but it's still fresh. And then, you know, the more exhibitions that you will get, I think the mid-career artists that you'll hit, I think. But it also just depends on like each gallery as well, and the program as well. And sometimes you'll come across a submission that actually has an age bracket that they've attached to it as well. So just be aware of these details in the listings.
And not a question, but I just wanted to shout out from Jeff, who made a comment, not to forget the smaller institutions such as Grant, Britannia, Culch, Fire Hall, other places that do art rental. I will agree with that and say too, a great place if you're looking for calls is the Alliance for Arts and Culture. Yep. Website posts calls all the time. Yep. I know Opus newsletter also posts calls, and of course the
Instant Coffee, yeah.
Instant Coffee. Yeah. I go through all that and then post them on the Artist Salon Facebook page. So yeah, there's a lot of resources out there for you to find more of these calls. Oh, someone else just said Akimbo, another really good one. Yep. You know, and you don't have to limit yourself as well to Canada. There are a lot of international calls out there as well.
Exactly.
So
that's also a great way of saying, like, if you want to increase the visibility or what markets that you can go to, like local, national, international as well. They're all out there, and there's some really cool grants that you can apply for too if you want to go international to do a residency, for example. And the BAM Center, for example, they've got some great summer and winter residencies that you can apply for as well.
Oh, and then someone else mentioned Carfax. Yes, they also list if you're, there's a lot of, people are starting to list all the different places. There are many places. I think if you just did a Google search of artist calls, which is what I often do, you'll find a vast list out there. And then this was a question that was emailed to me. Just for what advice would you have for a new artist who's getting started in with all this?
Yeah, very, very good question. Thank you for asking that question too. My advice would be like familiarize yourself with some of the resources that were listed here. Kathy mentioned that the Artist Salon has a Facebook page, so you know, start going to art openings, some of these events and artist talks and professional development talks that are being given, start applying and seeing, and even just asking, for example, like coming or emailing art rentals and saying, if you have a meeting to talk about your work, it's all getting out there, communicating, getting your work out there, and creating that network of community too, so people get to know you as well.
And I just shared another one that Henry, our curatorial assistant, shared with me. They're for residency opportunities in China.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there is a lot out there once you start looking.
Yep.
And I don't think we have any further questions unless anyone else is madly typing in, but no, I think we're good for questions for now. Yeah, I think that's it for questions. Oh, would there be a way to contact you after the presentation?
Yes, you could email Kathy and she can pass on your question or query to me, and I'm happy to reach out. You can also visit me at Art Rentals and Sales when the gallery reopens. I'm happy to make new friends.
Oh, question from the first section.
Yes.
You mentioned including image details, dimensions, etc. with images. Does that mean you are including it on the image, except, you know, in the image file or in the file name, or how would you include that in a submission?
Yeah. So I would do it in the file name, but also, for example, Art Rentals asks for a thumbnail as well. So you could do an artworks list that lists all this as well if you don't want to put it in the file name.
There is no more questions other than just thank you. So thank you everyone for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you everyone. Great questions.
Yeah, and thank you to Jas for taking part of this as we experiment life online, and it all went rather smoothly, I thought, so that's great. And thanks everyone for your comments and your feedback. As I said, you know, check back with us on the website. We will be posting this again. I will, within the video, I'll embed some of those links so that you can easily find them again. And I do recommend following us, Richmond Art Gallery, on social, whether that is for the Salon group or just to see our posts, because we do often share a lot of this information for the artist community on our social media posts as well. Otherwise, I think we'll say thank you, everyone. So glad you could all make it, and we hope to see you next month. Okay. Bye.
Bye.